Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of STEM Girls Virtual, where we are talking about all things STEM. For everyone who might be wondering, what is STEM? It's science, technology, engineering, and math. And we are going to learn all about all different kinds of careers in those fields. Some you may have heard of, some you may have not heard of. We just want to keep everybody learning from home in this time. So today we have an awesome guest. Her name is Kelly, and she is coming from the Cincinnati Art Museum to tell us a little bit about how STEM and art go together to help us see what we see when we go to the museum. Hi, Kelly. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we're going to just jump into some questions. Is that okay with you?
Sounds good.
Perfect. So the first question we have is, can you tell us about your job and explain to us what exactly is it that you do?
Yeah, so I work at the Cincinnati Art Museum. I'm the objects conservator there. We have a total of 4 conservators, and we all specialize in a different material. So we have a paintings conservator, a paper conservator, a textile conservator, and an objects conservator. So what I do is I care for all of the 3-dimensional artwork in the collection. So anything that's 3-dimensional, from metal, ceramic, outdoor sculpture, I care for all of that. And I help preserve it for the future, so that future generations can see the art and appreciate it. I repair anything that's broken or damaged, and generally try to keep everything in good working conditions so that everyone can appreciate it.
Very interesting. That sounds very, very cool, very fun. Our next question is, can you please tell us what sparked your interest in this field? Was it something that you always wanted to do, or was it something that you kind of grew into loving?
Yeah, so I stumbled upon conservation, I think my sophomore or junior year of college, so quite late along the timeline, when people usually decide what they're going to do with their lives. But I was studying chemistry and archaeology, and I was on an archaeological dig in my undergraduate when we started excavating metal objects from a wet site. So from the time that we dug them out of the ground, we would go eat lunch, we'd come back, and already the objects would have completely changed in appearance. They'd be covered in rust, a lot of them really friable, breaking apart. And I just started thinking, obviously there's something chemically going awry there, and there must be a way to stop it somehow. So conservation, I found, was how you stop it. Those are the people who stop that kind of deterioration from happening. So I really wanted to go into that and figure out how to preserve these things so that everyone can see the objects just as they come out of the ground.
It's very cool. It's a very cool story of how you got into things. I
Yeah.
know that I once went on an archaeological dig and it was so much fun. So I completely appreciate that part of that story. We did bones though, so it was a little bit more substantial. We had a lot more bone material. But archaeology is super cool, and we definitely love that at Cincinnati Museum Center. So our next question is, what is one of the coolest experiences that you have had during your job? Something that was just like, I can't believe I get to do what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, in my graduate studies, I got to work at a Roman villa. So it
Very
was the
cool.
4th century Roman bathhouse, and mosaic tiles. You could see how they had heated the floors. They left spaces under the floors for airflow, for heat. And just the quality of the mosaic tiles, waking up and going to that site for work was just amazing. And I mean, through the career of conservation, I've been able to work at a lot of just crazy places. I worked for historic royal palaces. I was an intern at Hampton Court Palace. And so every day waking up, going to work at a palace, and, it was just really incredible, really unique objects to work on.
That sounds so cool. I've always wanted to view a spot like that in Rome and see things like that. It's on my to-do list. Our next question is, what is a challenge that you faced on your journey, and how did you overcome it? It could be something small, it could be something big, something that we all know that happens sometimes is on a journey that's this awesome. There's going to be hurdles, and we want to know one of yours and maybe how you handled that.
Yeah, so Well, this is conservation's a STEM field. You have to have a strong chemistry background. And luckily I have a degree in chemistry, but I would never consider myself good at math. It was always a subject that I found so challenging. And when I was just taking math classes, it was always a struggle for me to get through them. And I knew going into chemistry that I was going to have to take a lot of math classes, and I was going to have to find a way to make math work for me. So it was through chemistry and my second major of archaeology that I found that I could apply math to different things that made it more interesting or made it more understandable to me. So using what I loved to apply math to those things made it understandable to me. So applying math to making solutions and doing titrations and things like that, that's how I could understand math. And in archaeology, you can use math in a lot of different ways. Like we would find potsherds, and so you can figure out the diameter of a pot just by finding a tiny little piece of the rim. So applying math to something like that, where I get a really practical solution, it helped me understand it more. So I could get a better appreciation for math that way, and it really helped me get through all of the calculus classes that I ended up taking.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I know I personally find math to be very, very challenging. It always has been. And that's really good advice, is trying to put it into a more practical scenario for yourself, making it more relatable so that you can enjoy it more and then just feel more confident in it. That's awesome advice. And we hope that some of you will use that advice. I know math can be very daunting. I find it daunting. So hopefully maybe some viewers can find a way to make it better for themselves. Maybe you have some time during this situation. All right, so the next question is, what is some advice you'd like to give any young person wanting to pursue a career in a STEM field?
Yeah, so you don't, like I was just saying, you don't have to be good at everything. I know a lot of times if you're going into a science or a field, any kind of science field, you often feel like you have to be the best or you have to be good at everything, but it's really just about finding something that you love and applying challenging things to that. So I'll always just try to find your own way into it, or your own interest to make it work for you.
That's great advice. Thank you so, so much. So we do have a couple audience questions. Would you have some time to answer those today? Perfect. So the first one is, what is the best way to preserve old family photos? This might be a time where people are, cleaning out some of their household items. They might be finding old photos that they didn't know existed, or they just have some that they have in their personal collection. What's a good way that you know of to really make those photos last?
Yeah, so I'm objects conservator, so I don't normally work with photographs, but what I can tell you about photographs is that light is the most damaging thing, light and water. So you always want to keep them in a dry spot, try to keep it away from humidity. So hanging up a photo in a bathroom is probably not the best place for that. Showers, high humidity, it's not great for photographs. Also, try to keep things out of direct sunlight. Photos really don't like sunlight, they'll fade, some photos will get sticky. So keeping them away from light and away from humidity will really help.
Perfect, thank you. That's very good advice.
You can get
Then,
filter film that you can put like on a frame. So
okay.
in photograph, you can get a clear filter film that blocks ultraviolet light, which is what's really damaging. So you can get that and just put that on your photo frame, and that will help.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Another question we have is, are you at all involved in any historic building conservation? That's something that's very prevalent around Cincinnati, which is awesome to see. We love seeing that. Cincinnati Museum Center is a historic building. Parts of Cincinnati Art Museum are historic. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't do any architectural conservation, but that's sort of a subcategory in conservation. Part of the objects branch is architectural conservation. Yeah, so it's a different specialty, and you really have to, that's where your engineering really comes into play in that field. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a totally separate part of object conservation. That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but that's also super cool to know that that's a good way to involve engineering. So we like to
Yes.
see when we can mash some stuff up together.
Yeah.
Uh, One final question we have. What is your personal favorite artistic medium to work with? Maybe for what you're conserving, or maybe you do some fun artwork on the side yourself. Maybe you've done some cool stuff during this time.
Yeah. So I would never call myself an artist, but I love ceramics. I would say that I specialize in ceramics in conservation. And I recently have taken some ceramic classes and got really into them. And so now I am making a lot of ceramics. So yeah, I love ceramics and I love wheel throwing. It's just really therapeutic. And I've been doing a lot of that in this quarantine time.
I've always wanted to try a pottery throwing class. It does look so therapeutic and calming.
It is
Um,
really fun.
I wouldn't call myself an artist either, but I definitely would love to dabble in some ceramics.
Yeah.
So if anyone at home has some cool ceramic pieces, show us your photos or any art for that matter. Or maybe you are a junior conservator and you have been working on restoring something or conserving something. We'd love to see your pictures. Post those on this event page. Show it to us through Instagram, all that good stuff. We'd love to see what you guys are doing. So Kelly, that is all we have for today. Thank you so, so much for taking the time to chat with us. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Perfect. And thank you all for watching. Please stay tuned for the next installment and our next interview for STEM Girls Virtual. Keep tuning in to all the awesome learning opportunities we have through Cincinnati Museum Center, and check out Cincinnati Art Museum because they've got some awesome opportunities of their own. Keep learning, everybody, and have a good one. Bye.